is the Atlanta Startup Podcast, where we are being the voice to founders and the venture ecosystem in Atlanta and the South in general. I'm super excited today to have Dena Lewis of Running Mate. She's incredible. She's one of the recent winners of at the last 25th edition showcase at Startup Runway. My name is Waima DK. I am the managing director of Startup Runway, where our mission is to introduce founders to their first investors. And so welcome, Dena.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
So I'm so glad you're here. I think it would be best coming from your voice to hear more about what Running Mate is and essentially what you're building, what the problem you're trying to solve.
Sure. So first, thanks for having me.
No problem.
This is awesome. So Running Mate is a real-time on-demand app, and we match verified safe mates with runners when the runner is ready to go. So think of us sort of as the Uber for runners.
Yep.
I've been a long-distance runner for about 20 years. I've been a runner for 20 years, long distance for about 10. And over the course of that time, like a lot of women, I've been harassed countless numbers of times. The cat calls, the horn honks, the unwarranted, behaviors. But I've actually been physically assaulted twice. So I started in 2020 on a venture to try to find a more proactive approach to providing safety for women, whether they're walking or running or just outside in general. And so that's where Running Mate came about.
Awesome. And incredible use case, incredible solution to a real problem. I cannot say that I am a runner, but I know one of the barriers that I've had to even exploring that as a fitness option is being afraid that I could go out there and be able to do it in a safe way and without having to deal with all the issues that you've mentioned. And so I really believe in what you're building here.
Thank you.
So one question that I have is, a sense of any feedback that you've gotten from the folks that have been able to utilize your platform. What are they saying about the new experience of running they're having with Running Mate?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've heard the most of is that we're building a community. And I don't think I expected that to be so strong in the beginning. If you think of Uber, everyone knows what Uber is. And so I go back to that because it's easy to kind of understand. But my mission was to just make sure we were providing a safe partner for people to run with, male or female. Doesn't matter. Anyone can be on our platform. Our target market is women because 92% of women don't feel safe when they run. And the statistics for women that are harassed are over 50%. So the number is higher for women, but men go through their different forms, whether they feel like they could get lost. They might be in a city they are unfamiliar with, or men too have told us about situations they've had where they've actually had assault on themselves when they've been exercising. So our feedback has been that we are truly building this community. And that for me is the most positive feedback we could get, which also kind of helped me shift a little bit about how we targeted our users. Because building an app, I think a lot of people think you just build an app and you throw it out there and they will come, and that is definitely not the case. You can spend a lot of money building an app, and if it's not something that people can use or want to use, then you've basically wasted money. So building that market, especially a 2-channel market, was new to me. And I did not realize, how complicated it can be to create a market for like our mates and our runners. But because we're building that community, it's actually brought people on the platform. And so besides feeling safe, people tell us that they actually really enjoy having someone that they've never met before, but they know they're safe because of the steps we take to actually be there with them while they're running. People have talked about training together. I had this one lady that has never run a 5K, and she wanted to start training for a 5K. She was in our beta test, and she utilized one of our mates. He happened to be a running coach. He gave her some great tips. She successfully finished her 5K. She's now signed up for a half marathon.
That's amazing.
So it's things like that. And we've just had a lot of people reach out to us and give us information of what the app has done for them, just from a confidence perspective as well.
Mhm.
So again, that's all feedback that we've been really happy to hear and excited to see that's happening.
Well, I love to hear that. And it's incredible that you're seeing this feedback and you're being able to incorporate it in the way that you build out the service behind the app, the value behind the app. And it's not a mistake, of course, that you're using Uber, the Uber of running, or in that Uber shifted the game around how we thought about what it would look like to share a ride. Like maybe 20 years ago, if somebody mentioned that service, I'd be like, why the hell would I get in a car with a random?
Yeah.
And so it seems like you're being able to create a additional shift in how people might partner up in the running process. Is that a good way to think about it?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it really is, because you're right. Uber did kind of change the way we thought about things.
Mhm.
But I sometimes go a step further, because it is still weird for people,
Mhm.
especially women,
Mhm.
because we always have these thought bubbles around us,
Mhm.
even if we're getting in an Uber or whatever it may be,
Mhm.
that, okay, is this going to be safe? Am I going to make it to my destination? And I know I think about that a lot. I've traveled my whole career. And when Uber first came out, I thought, there is no way I'm getting in a car, like you said, with some random person. And then the first time I did it, then it became more of a habit.
Mhm.
And I think the really big difference between us and Uber, though, is that we really want to make sure that people have a personal connection with the mate, because it is a little more personal to exercise with somebody. And also for women in general, we tend to have this level of confidence when we're exercising, that we're either not going to be good enough, or there's this like judgment that goes along with it. And even though I've run long distance, I still face that. Like if I go to a running club, sometimes I think, okay, I've got to do the whole social thing. I've got to keep up with somebody. Can they keep up with me? Who am I going to pair up with? There's like almost this weird awkwardness. But with us, it's like you get to pick who you run with, and you're paying to run them to run with you. So they have to run at your pace.
Exactly.
And you don't even have to talk to them if you don't want to. You know, we put things in place where people don't even have to communicate if they don't want to. So we just kind of tried to take it a little bit further.
I love that. And it says a lot. And I actually wanted to segue to the point that you actually won at Startup Runway, the last edition, the most investable venture of the finalists that we chose. And I wanted for folks to get a little bit of a view into what preparation and experience brought you to that point where, one, obviously we've talked about the value, but that people on the other side of the stage were able to receive it, and then you be able to get awarded for that pitch. I hope that makes sense as a question. Yeah,
it does. First of all, it was super exciting because it was an event that kind of came up, and to be a finalist, and as a founder, that's just one of those things. It's almost like your gratification or your validation, you know, that your company has made it to be able to present at something like that. I've had the luxury, or not the luxury, but I've had the history of I've been in corporate America most of my life, so I've presented a lot. But I will say, having your own business and presenting your company is probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do, because in your mind, you know what you want to say, but sometimes it doesn't always come out that way. And also when it's your company, you think everybody's going to love it. You know, who's not going to like it?
It's like your baby.
Yeah, my baby. And so I had to actually, I went through some coaching to be able to help me get to a point where I could express those feelings. And so I hope it's okay if I mention, but there's Kat Weaver and Katie Dunn run a company called Power to Pitch. Nice. And I partnered with them for very specific reasons. They were women. They believe in women and female founders. For me, that was super important. And they were successful themselves. So I felt like there's a lot of resources out there, but I felt like if I'm going to partner with somebody in a resource, I needed to make sure that we kind of had mutual expectations, or we aligned basically with our goals. And so they were really good at helping me figure out the best way to put my company in words, in a presentation. and go from there. And also to be factually correct. I mean, again, I think as founders, we get very emotional about our business, and we tend not to get where we need to be sometimes, whether it be with our financials or our traction or what's going to present the best in order for us to be able to take that idea and grow with it. So yeah, so they helped me a lot. And then just really digging deep in my market, doing market validation. I think the biggest thing that has prepared me is that I've actually been in the market with my customers, figuring out and building what they want, not just what I think is a good idea. And that has given me a level of confidence to be able to present my company, because I know my company and I know what my customers want. And it's not because I'm, just Googling it or paying a lot of money for research. I'm physically out there with them, hearing what they say, taking that feedback, and then trying to put it into the business to give them the best outcome.
I love that. And what I'm hearing in what you said is that you've invested in two ways. One, the obvious building of a product and being in the market so that you can have that experience. You know exactly what you're presenting, what you've built on. Not to say that others who haven't done that work don't have the element of confidence, but you've doubled down in that space. And then the other investment is on the personal and executive development space of communicating about what you've built. And so I think that's an incredible takeaway for our listeners, especially if they're founders and thinking about going this path, like making that investment on both sides. That's really, really good. Actually, and more, I would want to learn more about your experience pitching, and particularly your experience at Startup Runway. Like, how did you find your time there? I'm sure there are folks who might be listening who want to know, okay, what is that environment like? Do I want to jump into that? Would love to hear a bit about your experience of the day.
Yeah, no, it was actually really neat. I had never done a mock board meeting setup like that. And so quite honestly, I was really nervous. Like, how's this gonna go? But I really loved it. For me, it was valuable because it was the chance to take some things that I know that we're working on within the company, and put them out there for suggestions as if I were having a board meeting. I mean, there's a lot of us that we might not have these really big, huge companies with these big boards and all these advisors. And I try to keep that as real as possible. When you're a startup, you have to be scrappy, and you can only do so much with the resources that you have. And so for me, I love that because I had the chance to meet with some people, there were 4 different people that I spoke to, and they all had very different perspectives. I could take that information, I could take that feedback and do something with it. So that for me was really valuable. Awesome. The pitching, again, super nerve-wracking. You're sitting there, and I think I was either 8th or I was like second to last.
Yeah.
And so I had to sit and watch all these people, and I'm thinking, wow, there's some really good companies up here. And so that was a little bit nerve-wracking, but then at the same time, it was good because I think, again, I try to be very, very methodical in the things that I do, that if it's not helping the business, I don't need to spend the time doing it because I'm trying to grow a company. And for me, it was valuable because as you listen to everybody, you always need to be trying to take something away from it. And everyone that pitched had really good ideas. They had really great presentation. And you can learn from that. So sitting there and listening to everybody, and then of course being able to win, great.
Pretty nice.
Pretty nice. Yeah. And honestly, I will say this too, because I've told a couple of people this since. The judges and the feedback was very sincere. I've done a couple of events where people talk to you afterwards, and then when you try to follow up with them, there's nothing. There's been more feedback, both positive and negative. I try to take the negative and again learn from it. And it's been very good to see the level and the quality of people that you all have attending at those events.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I asked that question, one, to just continue to validate it. It's also really encouraging to see that our intention is actually being realized by the folks we're trying to serve, and particularly the mock board meeting, because what we try and do is we say they come for the checks, but we want to sprinkle in there something that will, one, distinguish our event from others, but something like, regardless of whether or not they get that check, there's something valuable and some insight, some connection that they can walk out of the room with.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
I
it
really
was
got
definitely very good. It was very good. As a matter of fact, there's some connections that I made
Mhm.
that I'll be doing an event tonight, and they're gonna come just so we can connect. So we're still having conversations. Yeah, so it's good. It's good.
Exactly. The mission, we're getting it. More
Yeah.
first checks for underrepresented founders. It's happening. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been an awesome, awesome conversation. I want to give you a chance to share about anything else that you would want listeners to hear about, either from the founder perspective or other investors. A lot of investors listen to our podcast, like what you have coming up, what you would need from our audience in terms of engagement or in the development, anything that you want to share with the audience on behalf of Running Mate.
Yeah, so I think first of all, one thing I would share with founders is that, we all, I mean, everyone knows this isn't easy. No one sets out to say, okay, I'm going to do the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and do it day after day after day. And then the rejection, that is definitely something that can get very hard. And you kind of start to go through this lull where you're thinking, okay, am I doing the right thing? But I know when you build a company or you find a product or develop a product or whatever it might be, in order to really, I think, be super successful, is that there has to be a story. There has to be a problem you're solving, and you have to validate that problem. And, for me, I knew it was a problem, but did I know if it was a problem for other women? And it wasn't until I got out there to validate that I realized, wow, it's a bigger problem than I thought it was. So I think first and foremost, before people spend a lot of money, you've got to validate it. You've got to figure out, is it truly a problem that other people are facing? And then if it really is it going to generate enough revenue for it to be a viable product?
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I've learned, is that, and I still face it, I'm a marketplace. Right now we're B2C. We're working on a B2B model, which is going to generate more revenue. But even though our total addressable market is huge, is it going to be something that's scalable? And that is something else I think a lot of founders kind of forget about. And I know I did, in the beginning. I wasn't really focusing on how scalable is this. So that's super important. Are you really fixing a problem, and how scalable is it if you're going to raise money? And then from the investor perspective, I just think it's so hard to raise money right now.
Yep.
It is so hard. And being a female, it's even harder. And so I appreciate what y'all are doing, because there are those of us out there that genuinely need to be able to raise in order to keep things moving forward. And the fact that you're here gives us a voice that we really wouldn't have otherwise. So I'm very grateful for that. And I know I have a lot of female friends that are founders that say that. That is the common theme of the conversation. Is I feel like there are a lot of companies out there that say they want to help females, but then when it really gets down to it, they still, if you look at their portfolio, they still have a pretty large male population that they invest in. And that means they've got great products, but we need that representation. So from the investor perspective, please keep thinking about us. Women tend to have more successful companies.
Come on, so tell them, Dena.
Yeah, just statistically, it's there. We can juggle multiple things. Just because we have a family, or just because, that doesn't mean we can't do it. We probably have more endurance to do it. And so take a gamble on us. For me, that's huge, is that there just needs to be more.
Absolutely. And I love that you said it. What we like to say around here is that if you really want to say you're backing the best, you need to be seeing everyone. And if your investment portfolio isn't looking more like the cross section of the United States, then can you really say that you're seeing everyone and really backing the best? So I love that you mentioned that. That is part of the passion that drives what we do here at Startup Runway, and also through the podcast and through the work that Valor Ventures does. We want to make sure that we're truly backing the best. And so we want to make sure we shed a light on incredible founders like you,
Thank
like
you.
you.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And how can our listeners find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so we are at Get Running Mate is
Mhm.
our Instagram, we're on LinkedIn at Running Mate. Honestly, if someone wants to email us, they can do that too. Hello at Get Running Mate.
There you go.
So at Get Running Mate is pretty much everything for us.
Mhm.
Follow us on Instagram. We are on Facebook and TikTok, but we mostly post on Instagram. Most of our followers are on Instagram. So yeah, they
Nice.
can follow us. And then our website is www.getrunningmate.com, and everything on our website will take you somewhere, whether it's QR code. We actually have submission forms on our website that people can go and sign up as either a mate or a runner.
Awesome.
And one other thing that we did do that I just want to shout out real fast
Of
is
course.
I started something called the Female Runner Safety Summit,
Mm.
and that's also housed on our website. And basically what that is it's a group of companies that have come together, and we all have the mission of female runner safety as our mission, and we do events together. So whether it's attending races, we travel to universities and educate women on some of the different, because at Running Mate, we think we're one of the tools.
Mhm.
We're a big tool,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
there are a lot of other tools you could have in your bag as well to keep yourself safe. And so we try to partner with as many of those companies as possible
Mhm.
so that it's a full bag for women to be able to have different things to choose from. And so we travel around and talk about that. So that's also on our website.
I love that. And I think in general, we get better, more impactful innovation through collaboration. So I love that you've obviously seen that as an avenue to grow what you're doing at Get Running Mate by partnering with folks who are doing something similar. Awesome. Yeah, so great talking to you.
You as well. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was
Yes.
fun.
Yes. I'm glad you came through the office and we got to do this live.
Yeah.
So to our audience, thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your day.